Welcome to the fantasy football playoffs, or at least I assume you're in the fantasy football playoffs, or why else would you be putting up with my nonsense? But let's take a quick look at the waiver wire to help you get ready for that first round. Hopefully, some of you have had a bye. Quick note here. Obviously, we always preach to go out, do your due diligence, make sure Jack Doyle is not available, Darius Geis, Rashad Penny. For whatever reason, in one of the leagues that I'm in, Rashad Penny was just hanging around, and it really baffled me because I saw it there on Sunday morning, and I'm like, well, this can't be right, but apparently it was. And the team that had the Chris Carson did not have Rashad Penny, which is an absolute mistake. And so I would implore all of you to make sure that those three guys are there. If not, it's fine. You know what? We'll roll on anyways. But also, if you have Dalvin Cook, I think that Monday night showed that you got to make sure that you have Alexander Mattison. As a matter of fact, my top waiver wire priorities would be some of those handcuffs and running through them here. Alexander Mattison, Latavius Murray, Tony Pollard, Gus Edwards, Rashad Penny, of course, Raheem Mostert, Raquel Armstead would also be another one, and let's say Bilal Powell. So those guys are who would be in the mix for me, who I would be looking at right now, seeing if you can kind of get them in there and get them on your waiver wire and get them going. And, just make sure you're insulated. And even if you have got a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, who I do personally, I'm going to go and start thinking about some handcuffs as well. Probably not picking up RG3, but going and looking and seeing who is going to be available. And let's start with some of the quarterback streamers. And obviously, Ryan Tannehill took a little bit of a dive. Not a dive, that's a bad way to put that. But he took a little bit of he wasn't great fantasy-wise on Sunday. Of course, he led the Tennessee Titans to a victory over the Indianapolis Colts, a game I predicted. I know, the Titans fans have been all up in my mentions like, hey, you didn't think we were going to be a good football team. You know who else didn't think you were going to be a good football team? Mike Vrabel. That's why he benched your quarterback earlier this season when you were 2-4. Said, listen, don't come after me because I was right. And obviously my model could not have predicted what would have happened had Mariota been benched, but it was obviously the right thing to do. And he is going to be our top streamer this week going up against the Oakland Raiders. Only Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and Dak Prescott have had more fantasy points than Ryan Tannehill since he's taken over as the starter. That to me is one of the easiest pickups of the week. And as a matter of fact, that'll be my top waiver priority in Fantasy League 1. Even though I'm the top seed, and I don't need a quarterback because I have Lamar Jackson, I just want to make sure that I have somebody on the bench ready to go. There's dudes on the team, on my league, on my squad, who I know are not going to play. I'm never going to be tempted to play them, and it's fun to have Will Fuller, although I dropped Will Fuller a couple of weeks ago. But as an example, players like that. Sam Darnold, going up against Miami. I'm less enthused about that. I've got him in the lower half of the QB2 situation. Ryan Fitzpatrick going up against the Jets in a revenge game, but Miami's going to be on the road. We love Ryan Fitzpatrick much more at home. So if I can do something a little bit weird, what about Mitch Trubisky this week against the Dallas Cowboys? Now the Bears are 6-6, and they had 419 total yards against the Detroit Lions. That was their most since Week 7 in 2018, which was huge. And excuse me while I read my notes here. Mitch Trubisky, over 300 passing yards, over 3 touchdowns. That is the fourth time. The fourth time in his career he has had a game where he has thrown for more than 300 yards, thrown for 3 touchdowns. The most such games by a Bears quarterback in the Super Bowl era. So we talk about the best Bears quarterbacks of my lifetime. It's always McMahon, Cutler, Walter Payton on the halfback option. But Mitch Trubisky is out there putting up yards, putting up statistics, and I don't know that if he's starting to figure it out. Obviously, they were going up against the Giants and going up against the Detroit Lions, so we should, of course, temper our expectations. But the point is he's had back-to-back really good games. The Cowboys defense has been struggling. You can throw on them. This could be another opportunity for Mitch, especially at home. If he was on the road, I would feel a little bit more apprehensive. And he's starting to come into his own. Now, I wish he would run a little bit more. We've never seen that safe floor that he was giving us pre-Harrison Smith taking out his shoulder last season. But if he can get back to doing that and being a little bit more, listen, I don't mind. If he's going to be more Jeff Driscoll-like and be like, one read, not there, I'm running, I would feel better about that. Don't try to extend the play. Don't try to Russell Wilson it. You're not of that skill. But he's starting to play a little bit better. I don't think he's going to get the Jared Goff deal, but he's obviously going to be on the team next year because he has shown some competency. So I think the quicker we get used to it, the better. And that's obviously just for the Bears fans. The rest of you are like, dude, tell me who to pick up on the waiver wire. Sorry about that. We're going to be talking about Darwin Thompson. The Chiefs' backfield is in flux. Darrell Williams might not play this week. Damian Williams was inactive. LaShawn McCoy looks like he's a larger version of LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy is the guy that 5 years after college and you're like, hey, let's meet up with some of our old fraternity buddies. We're going to go to off-campus pub and hang out for a minute. And then one dude shows up like 80 pounds heavier than before. That's kind of what LaShawn McCoy looks like to me. Not quite in the David Johnson type of category, but similar ilk. And of course, with this matchup this week against New England, it's going to be a little bit tougher for the running backs to get going. I don't know if they'll be able to run on them as much as they would like, but very confident in Patrick Mahomes this week. I know a lot of people will have that question. They've already started to ask me about it, but I feel confident about Patrick Mahomes. James Washington is another good option too. Juju Smith-Schuster, we're not sure when he's going to return, if ever, this season. And since he returned from injury in Week 8, James Washington has been very good. And even when they switched off his college quarterback and they went to Duck, still a good player. And this week they got a decent enough matchup too that I would look for James Washington as a player who could help you out. Darius Slayton is another player as well with injuries on to all the receivers, or all the pass catchers, I should say, because Evan Ingram is always in the mix. And it seems like every week we talk about Evan Ingram. Is this going to be the week that he returns? Who knows? So Darius Slayton is somebody to take a look at. And you know what? If I'm advocating for Mitch Trubisky, it only makes sense to give a little bit of a mention for Anthony Miller. Now, obviously, Allen Robinson's great. You can't get him. Listen, that shop is gone. You can't go on a Cyber Monday and expect to go get an Allen Robinson. But Anthony Miller is still on the shelf, and you can go pick him up. And the one thing, too, again, we like this matchup. Anthony Miller is one of the more frustrating players in the league because there are times where you're like, yes, I get why Ryan Pace moved up to draft this guy. And there's other times you're like, what the hell is that player doing out there on the field? But he has given you some good production in recent weeks. And Zach Pascal was pretty good last week. Didn't get into the end zone. Instead, that went to Rahif Raymond, or whatever his name is. It is Raymond. Khalif Raymond, excuse me. He got the touchdown, but Zach Pascal was getting all the targets, all the options. Deeper sleeper, of course. Don't be dropping anybody good. And, of course, Raheem Mostert. I don't know. I think the tide is set on Tevin Coleman. I think it's time to stop believing in Tevin Coleman as him being a thing. I don't think that that's going to be able to happen. But in any event, a lot of those guys are not picking up the starting. We're just looking to acquire some depth. I think Darwin Thompson might be somebody, of course, if things shake right. And, of course, if Rashad Penny is still out there. Of course, as I mentioned, always do your diligence. Good luck, everybody. We'll have the Adam Rank podcast later on this week, and we'll get you ready for the fantasy football playoffs. Until that time, we'll see you.